I used to believe that my marketing abilities were very important to the success of our games, like especially for the first two games. And the longer I'm doing it, the more I'm feeling like actually it's just a game. We launched with like 900,000 plus wishlists. And I was just thinking the people on this wishlist are waiting for 1.0. Turns out I was mega wrong.
This is a conversation with Philomena Schwab, co-founder of Stray Fawn Studio. They have an incredible track record with 4 fantastic releases so far. You might know them from The Wandering Village, Dungeon Clawler, but their previous games, Nimbatus and Niche, were equally as successful.
The bank was empty on the day that the game came out. It felt like we had one giant dinosaur egg in a basket and everything was depending on this. So currently Dungeon Clawler Mobile is financing our 15 people in the studio. Our studio has been around now for 10 years and we're like working on game number 5.
Philomena also leads Stray Fawn's new publishing branch, and she also co-founded the Swiss Game Hub, a co-working space for game developers. She gathered a lot of experience about game development from a lot of different sources, and I think it shows massively. That's why I'm excited to have her on the show today for all of us to learn from. I hope you enjoy. Maybe a bit of a cold open question, like what's your theory for how to make successful video games? Do you have a theory or?
Going right in. I used to believe that my marketing abilities were very important to the success of our games, like especially for the first two games. And the longer I'm doing it, the more I'm feeling like actually it's just a game. So I do think like if you have a really good game, like let's imagine the game is like a little fire, like some wood. It's enough if I just have a tiny bit of a lighter and I put it on and it will go up in flames. You still need that tiny little spark, you know? On the other hand, if your game is like one tiny little branch, you can come with the marketing flamethrower and throw and throw and throw, and nothing is going to really happen because it's going to and burn out right away. So yeah, I just feel like it's the game. You need to have a game idea that is appealing in some way. There is multiple approaches, I think, to this. And yeah, then a little bit of marketing or ideally a little bit of marketing to increase the chances to make it go out there. Yeah, that's where I'm currently at. I don't know, maybe next year it changes again, but this has been a gradual thing, like, it's just a game.
All right, so you came in as a marketing person and have slowly transformed to the just make a good game side of things, pretty much.
I guess, unfortunately, yes. I kind of wish it would have stayed that way and I would have just felt that, yeah, you can give me almost any game and I can make it work, kind of, so. Yeah.
I mean, what's very impressive about your studio history is that so far it seems like you only landed hits. Like your very first game, what was that again?
Yeah, our very first game was Niche. Yeah,
Niche. Yes.
So maybe a tiny bit of how that came to be. So me and my business partner, we met each other at like a local game event where everybody could show off their game, and he showed off his hobby project, which is called Nimbatus, the space drone constructor, that he had been working on for multiple years, like on the evenings and weekends. And me, I had Niche, which was my bachelor thesis that I made back when I studied game design and had continued to work on since. And then we really liked each other's games and we saw that we have a very complementary skill set. And then it kind of felt like we were doing like a marriage compatibility test. So like we sat down and like each had some like questions for each other, and then we each wrote down what kind of genres of games and like what kind of themes are we interested in and that kind of stuff. And then we saw that, actually, I think there is a ton of games we would both be interested in making each other. And that's why we ended up starting a studio together. Then we made Niche, which was originally my thing, and then we made Nimbatus, which is Micha's game.
Awesome. And they both did really well from what I can see.
They both did really well. I think Niche made lifetime about 400k-ish copies, and Nimbatus is like, I think at 200 or 250. And with Nimbatus, we unfortunately could not port it to consoles, so Nimbatus is Steam only because it has such a weird control scheme where you need 1,000 buttons to control each part of your drone separately. And it's also weird that this has kind of become a theme for our studio. So whenever I have the lead on a game, it's a biology game. Niche is a game about population genetics. And whenever Micha has the lead, it's a physics game. And so that has been going on up until now.
I see. And those first 2 games, was it just the 2 of you, or how has the studio growth progressed over time? Because I know you're around like 10 people right now, right?
Right now 15, but also we have 2 interns. Already with Niche, when Micha came in, there was already a small team with me and I think 2.5 other people that kind of came on board because they thought the concept is cool. And then we essentially everybody wrote down their hours, and then we agreed that we would then split. If there ever was anything to split, we would then split it. And Micha, he was like working alone on Nimbatus, so he basically came into the Niche team. And then we first made Niche as Team Niche. And then only once the game was released, we actually founded the studio out of it, because we needed to pay tax and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But before, it was like a group of hobbyists just tracking time, splitting revenue based on that, and having like a little contract. And then Nimbatus was the first game that was fully made inside of the studio. And it's funny because we often get asked that, after Niche did so well, like it's a surprise success for your first game, right? Why didn't you just make Niche 2 or like something similar? It's like, because we had the agreement from the get-go that this would be our second game. So there is a lot of like talks. How do you choose your second game? Like, we didn't really. We just made the 2 games that we set out. And then Wandering Village was really the first time where we could apply some of the knowledge, because on both games we were already like in the middle of production, right? With Niche, we were, I think, lucky, and it made it a bit easier for the marketing. There was really nothing that is like such a big genetics focus. And even so the very first thing we did when we started working on the project together is running a crowdfunding campaign. That was actually part of my master thesis. I wrote my master thesis about community building for indie game developers, and spent a year like trying to build up communities around the 2 games. And then my teachers were like, that's nice, but is that actually going to help with making the game successful? And then like the agreement between me and my teachers was that a crowdfunding campaign would prove whether or not this could actually be put into value for making the game. And it ended up raising like 75K, and we were all like, okay, we were not expecting that, which was then the first time we could pay ourselves like $10 an hour. So that was like the starting point.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you managed to run a successful Kickstarter game before there was anything playable, before you had a demo, just from pure community building, or how did you do that exactly?
No, there already was a demo. So like as part of the Bachelor, where I made the game, you had like 3 months time to make a demo for that's your bachelor thesis. And then I worked a little bit more on it, and a few months later then put it out on Kickstarter. So there was something playable. There even was, back in the day, there even was a web build that you could just, one click, you're in the web build, kind of trying to remove every barrier there was between people and the game. And also like traveling around to all kinds of game conferences, thanks to the Pro Helvetia, which is like a Swiss thing that helps you go to different places. Good chances there's something like that in your region too. Check it out. And then just going there, collecting everybody's email addresses, writing them by hand into some forms, and then spending hours and hours trying to figure out this hansmuller@gmail. Is it correct? Like, and then, putting them all in the newsletter. And that's how like the first 500 people came into the newsletter. Yeah.
Oh my God. You added 500 people manually to your
It was like 3,000 people across all of the time.
Jesus. Yeah. Okay. So,
but like, let me stick with the Niche community for 1 sec. Sorry. Because they are the best. When the game launched into early access, just a couple thousand wishlists, like really nothing big. And the launch was also like not huge. It was like, this is the launch. And then over the next year, we continued to make the game. And before it came out, we told everybody like, okay, the game needs to sell at least 50,000 copies for 1.0. or we have to stop because then we actually have to do something else and get a job. And people were like, oh my God, it will stop and it actually costs something to, make a game. And like, yes. So we gave them like a list of things that they should do for the launch, like write a review, give the game to a friend, let your favorite YouTuber and streamer know. And so like a big ass list, share this, share that, share. And they really did. And so this game had like an early access launch that was this, and a 1.0 release that was this, which is very like not common for a game to do, right? And yeah, it was all thanks to their pushing, because a lot of big YouTubers then ended up picking it up because everybody was telling them like, oh, there's this game, you should really play it. And like, I guess that convinced them to actually take a look.
I guess the lesson here is also a bit that I feel like oftentimes the community is what's really doing the marketing anyway, right? Like for all of my games, I feel like the community also really helped spread the word. And for example, if you look at games like Silksong, they didn't do a ton of marketing. The community basically did all of that, right?
Right.
But I think it's also very interesting what you say about community building, because a lot of people, when they make their first game, it's kind of developing into the void a bit, right? It's like, where is everybody? Where are the people interested in my game? What would you recommend? Like, what can you do to get like your first 100 people interested? Like,
so I think for me, I draw a lot of my motivation from like when I'm sitting there and I have to fix bugs. I'm like, oh. And if I know that there is some people waiting for me to do that and give them a new build so they can continue to enjoy the game, that like increases my motivation tenfold. So for me, naturally making a game, I start to bring them in like super early. One cute story that I have for Niche. The game Niche is actually inspired by a children's book series. It's called Warrior Cats. And I originally was planning to offer them like a collab. So I would like make a game about their book series as my bachelor. And they said, no, they are not really doing collabs. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to make a completely different game and just take some inspiration from the books. And then I reached out to the author again once I had actually made the prototype and said, look, it's not Warrior Cats, but like you can probably feel the vibe of it still in there. And she really liked it. And then she like posted it on her Warrior Cats forum newsletter. And then I had like 1,500 teenage girls in my back then Facebook group that came over, from her giving me a shout out. So I think it's just really good if you tell people about your game, find the people that are actually interested in your game. So like I spent a lot of time with Niche, for example, in genetics, Facebook groups and subreddits, or as I said, like Warrior Cats communities. So I think it's much easier if your game has some kind of adjacency with existing communities. If I was making an abstract puzzle game that has no relation to anything, that would make it harder for me. Now here I could just piggyback off the topic of genetics. We like, in terms of press for this game, we had more coverage from science news sites than from games news sites. And like, this is something that never happened again. Each game is so unique in where the people are that are actually interested. For Nimbatus, for the second game, for example, we quickly found out that Imager and 9gag were like, that's where the people are. And like for Niche, that didn't work at all. And there we could like really use like the game's visuals, make some cool GIFs. But here also like we went into some robotics and programming groups to talk about the game. So yeah, makes it much easier. Or for Wandering Village, like Ghibli is probably one of the most adjacent ones. So we always post stuff there. Yes.
So hearing all of this very much sounds like your early marketing efforts did make a big difference. So I can kind of understand.
No, don't tell me that now. Don't confuse me.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just a little confused myself sometimes about this entire topic, because I also talked to Hugh Millward, the guy who made Warsome. I'm not sure if you know Warsome. It's like an entirely text-based game. And he also told a similar story that he just put a ton of effort into community building and all of these little marketing opportunities and constantly sort of fishing for attention. Sort of similar to what you're explaining here. And somehow that turned a failed release into quite a successful game over time.
Maybe if the game is super niche, like such as a fully text-based adventure or a population genetics simulation, probably that is where you need to dig for the people. But if you can make a game that just has mass appeal, I guess then you don't have these problems as much, right?
Right. So basically maybe your strategy has shifted more towards let's just make something that has more mass appeal, so we have to do less of this manual digging for attention. Maybe that's a way to describe it. I'm not sure. We're figuring this out together.
Yes. It's like a therapy session. It's good.
On your next game was already Wandering Village, right?
Yes. So that is really for the first time where we could take all our learnings from the 2 previous games and apply it from the start. And I think it showed. It was a funny story how we got the idea, because it was just me and my business partner like taking a walk through an exhibition, and then there was a concept art of a turtle with a city on its back, as you often see it in mythology and in some pop culture. And we both stopped, looked at each other and said, I've been thinking about a game like that at the same time. And then we went back to the studio and told everybody. And usually when we pitch game ideas, like half of the people are like, that sounds cool. And the other half is like, eh. And that was like the first time where we came and everybody was like, yes. And the artists like instantly started making scribbles. And then I just took the scribbles that they made and I made some scribbles and put them on Facebook and said, we have this idea. How should we name the game? And then we had like hundreds of comments on how we should name the game without even like having a screenshot. And then we were like, okay, I guess this really is such an appealing fantasy in itself that hopefully this would do well. Actually making the game was like, because there we really came from the idea and from the fantasy, and we had to make like 6 prototypes until we felt like we could capture it in some way. And we were like, oh God, can we even make a game that manages to capture this or not? So that was
it was very much a fantasy first approach, not gameplay first. Okay.
Yes, we rarely have gameplay first games that we made. Niche was came from the topic, right? From the genetics topic. So the challenge there was like, how can you take the 5 pillars of population genetics and turn them into a fun game? So came from the topic. Nimbatus, I feel also, the second game came from, how can you make a fun game where you put together the drones? Like came from the building fantasy. Wandering Village came from that one. And the Dungeon Clawler, our newest game that we launched a few months back, also there was the idea first and the game second. So I think this is a pattern that goes through all of our games.
Well, there are of course different ways to make games, and there's not one correct way. That you always have to give that as a disclaimer before giving an opinion on this. But for what it's worth, I really think fantasy first is a really great way to go about it.
Good.
Because players care about fantasy a lot is something I have noticed. And also getting the fantasy and the feeling of a game right is much more difficult than getting the gameplay right. Like it's relatively easy-ish to make a fun game, but to make one that's appealing and that serves a fantasy and that serves that fantasy well, that's kind of the tricky part. So I find it interesting to hear that sort of everybody was instantly on board with the idea of the Wandering Village, and then it took you 6 prototypes to figure out how to serve that fantasy correctly.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird one, also because we wanted to do a Kickstarter quite soon for the game. Also kind of because we wanted to, we're a self-funded, no publisher studio. So we felt like it would be good to get the ball rolling and get some money in for the next game, not wait too long to see if this works or not, because if it doesn't, then we still have to shift. So we have kind of, like for bigger projects, we have always used for the first 3, for Niche, for Nimbatus, and for Wandering Village, they basically had the same approach of like validating it on socials and with the community. Kickstarter, early access with a tiny minimal, tiny version, and then game can stay in early access as long as it finances itself and as long as it's fun to work on. And then while it's in early access, you probably start thinking about the next thing. So that has been the process. So we wanted to do a Kickstarter fairly soon, but we were really far away from feeling confident that we had a really good prototype. So we kind of split the teams. And so there was the art prototype team that was in Unity, just like putting together all the stuff, like a camera. And also maybe a little side story that the game was originally planned to be fully 3D. But our animator, Marcus, he has been like, oh, please let me do 2D animation for a while, for the past projects too. And then he's also a tech artist, and he made this 2.5D thing where like when you do the zoom out, you have the buildings that like move a bit. And we thought like, well, it's pretty cool. So I guess you get to animate your 100 million images of little 2D people if that's really what your heart desires so much. And I'm really wondering still if this was a good decision because it set us apart from others, or if it would have been better to just keep it 3D because then, you can rotate the camera and stuff. But anyway, so we had the art team starting out on the art prototype, and at the same time, the gameplay team was doing a gameplay prototype because we wanted to make sure that everything that we show in the art prototype, which then like turned into a Kickstarter trailer, would actually be doable in the game. So we had a really ugly game prototype, which kind of tried to validate all the things that were showing in the trailer. So we didn't promise anything that we actually would not end up doing. And yeah, after a few attempts, we even had one prototype that was just completely UI, where it's like little things going up and down. You have to press buttons, but like not a city builder view or anything, which was also helpful to find out stuff about pacing. And yeah, then at some point we were like, okay, we're fairly confident this one works. And then the art prototype was far enough to make like a nice trailer, and that's what we used in the Kickstarter. But that was the first time we had a Kickstarter without a demo. The two previous games always had a demo. Then we had to patch it all back together, like the art prototype and the game prototype, which was a whole different level of complicated. But
do you think it's worth it to prototype things separately? Or what's your reason for doing those prototypes separately?
I do think in this case, it saved us time when we needed to save the time. Later, we had to pay the time back, because we had to actually fuse them together. But if we wanted to validate the idea quick to be able to move forward, I think it was a good idea. Probably doesn't work for every game, but in this case, I'm not regretting. Just a little bit, but I would do it again.
It sounds like you had some very big prototypes there. If you even managed to use like the art prototype for the trailer and so on, that sounds like a very big prototype.
Yeah, I mean, we used that one then essentially to become the game itself.
Yeah.
So we had to put the gameplay stuff in there, but it would have been easier to do it together.
I see. And what did you land on for the gameplay? Were there any interesting revelations from the gameplay prototyping about the pacing or how the game has to play to serve the fantasy correctly?
Yeah, we made some really weird prototypes also, like going into all kinds of directions. I made one that was more of a clicker. More of a clicker game. We made stuff that was more of a base builder. Like it wasn't even clear it was a city builder at the very beginning, right? So we quickly learned that even though everybody had been very much on board with the initial fantasy, everybody had a completely different idea on what that actually means. So we had to like bring everybody into one boat. And for that, we used like a technique where we basically asked questions. So is it more a base builder or a city builder? And then there was a line, city builder here, base builder here. And then everybody had to put like a line on the line. And then you could see that, okay, for some questions, it's pretty clear, okay, it's more of a city builder. Everybody is around here. But then there were questions like, how many people are you controlling? 5 or 1,000? And then we quickly saw that it was all over the place. So then it came to discussions like, oh, but do the characters, actually like RimWorld have a character and skills, or if you have a lot of them, then they probably don't because it gets too micromanagey. And then there were all kinds of these discussions before we kind of set on something. We also played like 20 different city builders and like our game designers and like analyzed firstly like genre conventions. So I think it was in a book from Tyne and Sylvester about RimWorld design, which is one of my favorite books, where he says that you should only burden your players with the kind of mental load that is actually interesting for them and is different in your game. So save all the samey stuff, just use what the others have done and use their brain capacity for the interesting parts of your games. So we kind of try to just, what works across the board, let's just take it. And where are we actually wanting to differentiate and on
That's really good advice, yeah. It's like the typical example for that I could come up with is inventory management. I hate inventory management in survival games. Like you have 1,000 boxes and you need to move items around constantly. I'm just like, can we get rid of this already? Can we focus on the interesting part so I don't have to spend my time moving objects around?
Yeah, I feel
I see. And for the case of Wandering Village, what were the interesting parts that you want the players to focus on?
So we noticed very early that people were like skeptical about the game in a sense that, but it's just decoration. So you're just building your city, but it's on a dinosaur, whatever, and you're not going to have any interaction with the dinosaur or no meaningful interaction. So it was important for us to very quickly have that in the prototype that you were actually codependent on each other. Actually, since it's my game as a lead, it's of course a biology game. So it's actually a game about symbiosis. So that was kind of like the design start. So the idea of you having to balance the needs of your people against the needs of the creature. And sometimes they are not always aligning with each other and you kind of need to prioritize. But also the option of you acting in an evil way, being a parasite, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And like constantly having that, I could also just exploit it option, but then kind of forming a relationship with it and like trying to give the player the feeling that they don't want to exploit it. It was also very fast apparent in the community that they hated all the parasite stuff. So whenever we added like, here is this new building and you can now take a stick and put it into the creature and force it to obey the command, And then they were all like, oh my God, no, remove this. I don't want to play this update. And it was really adorable because that's exactly the reaction I wanted to have from them, And there are some people sometimes that are just like super casually like, yeah, and then I poked my creature and blah, blah, blah. And then the whole community comes in like, you are not belonging here. And it even like all of these things, adding them sparked interesting conversations in the community. Like, is it okay to vaccinate your dog? Because he cannot consent and blah, blah, blah. And then like they started talking about. So this game inspired this kind of conversation, which I really like. In general, when I have a game design lead, I often try to design from the angle of what are people saying about the game. And then I essentially write like some texts where, this person would be posting or telling their friend this about the game. And this is another thing that I think I picked up from RimWorld a lot because I noticed that sometimes I just told like one of my coworkers an interesting story that happened in RimWorld and that the system was able to generate. And then I'm really impressed by it's really a storytelling machine, this game. And then I'm trying to like see what that would be in my game that people would be talking about and how can I make them talk about it with the design that we do.
Right. So even though the community was like, remove this, you sort of left it in because you saw that, this sparked some interesting discussions. Let's maybe lean into that maybe even a little bit.
Yes. Even like, I think it's much more interesting in games to be good if you have the option to be evil. Otherwise, it's not really a choice to be good. And I really like having like games where the good way is slightly harder than the evil way. So you're always a bit tempted to go to the other side, but you're kind of having this internal moral fight when you going on.
But I see. So you also noticed very early on that people have this worry that like the creature's just a skin basically, and it's just a normal-ish city builder.
Yes.
I understand that. But it's cool that you figured that out so early, that is something you need to address. Is that something you figured out in the team, or did you get some feedback from the community? How did you learn about this so early?
So I think when we started posting like first mock-up screenshots, that's already when this started popping up. And it like, so we were aware of it very early, and it kept coming. The same thing, the same worry kept coming up until like really for all the years of development, we saw this was the primary problem. And as for every game, but it doesn't have any combat. But we were like, nah.
But that's sort of the advantage of more public development cycles, that you get feedback and warning signs about this sort of stuff very, very early on, right? Because you could also develop these games in a vacuum behind closed doors and then release it and be surprised that people feel like, oh, yeah, there's not enough interaction with the creature or something. Do you always, I guess, due to the Kickstarter nature, you always have a very open development cycle, right?
Yeah, it's also just more fun for me, or also for the team. Like sometimes I see my dev friends and they are like working on something for 3 years and they're not allowed to show any of it. And they're like, I really want to show. And in our team, usually it's like, yeah, just post it. Sometimes there is like one thing like, don't say this because this is going to be an announcement. But other than that, everybody is essentially open to post all of the things that they're doing, also on their personal social media and so on. And I personally draw a lot of energy and motivation from people reacting. And also it makes me sleep better at night because I know I'm not developing into the void.
Yeah. Do you run Kickstarters for all of your games? So like part of your ritual, or how do you go about that?
Did not do it for Dungeon Clawler because the game was so small compared to the previous games. I think that's also something that we have been a bit worrying about. So like essentially with the first game that we made, we paid the second game that we made. And then with the money that came in from both, we paid the third game that we made. And we had a real make or break moment when it actually came out. It had a lot of signs that it was going to go well. It had like over 500,000 wishlists, which back in the day was more than now. I would say it's maybe the equivalent of 800 or 900 now because of wishlist inflation stuff. And so, yeah, originally we had planned to release the game a full year earlier. Like minimal viable product was essentially ready a yearish earlier. But then because it had so much attention, we felt that, and usually we also had only done English for early access and like really just focusing on updating quickly. But here we had so many Chinese and Asian wishlists that we felt like, no, we actually have to localize it. And if we would release it in the state that it is now, people would probably be a bit disappointed. And so we basically took all the money out of the bank, which was another our year reserve money, and put it all into the game. And the bank was empty on the day that the game came out. I mean, we had also done beta testing with like 8,000 people. And the feedback was super good. So we kind of moved through, I think, like 8 months of beta testing or something. And it went from like a 7 out of 10 average to a 9 out of 10 average rating. And that's funny because it reflected exactly the Steam reviews in the end. So that, I don't know if it was just a coincidence, but I also heard from some fellow dev friends that they had done that and they had gotten really good feedback, aside from a few that were like not happy with the game. And then the game had like mixed reviews, and they realized that the few that had given them negative feedback were actually exactly mirroring all the negative feedback that they then got on Steam. So that's why I was like super focused on the negative stuff. So like, okay, you like the game, it's good. Like I browsed through it. Okay, that's what you like. So let's keep that. And then just hyper focused on the fews that gave it like a 4 out of 10 or below, and see if we could fix any of these things. And that then gradually led to less people giving it very low scores in the beta testing. And that ended up being the Steam review score. So maybe it was a coincidence. It was the first time we did it to such a big extent. But we thought we have a game with a lot of wish lists and people seem to like it. So hopefully it will do well. But you never know, right? Sony could shadow drop their whole catalog on top of you and you will never know before. But luckily, it then went well. But it felt like we had one giant dinosaur egg in a basket and everything was depending on this. That's why we moved with Dungeon Clawler to just make a tiny game. It's not killing us if it's not doing well, and see how it goes. And in terms of copies sold, it will overtake the Wandering Village this year. Not in terms of revenue, because it's more expensive, Wandering Village, but in terms of copies sold. And we're just like, I guess this works too. So I guess we're now making some smaller games for a change.
The amount of effort you put in does not always reflect in the results,
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think the scale of a project sort of also influences your workflow a bit? Because you were like, okay, we have all of, like we have the giant egg in the basket essentially.
Yes.
That means we do have to do a lot of careful beta testing, make sure that players are happy with it. I'm wondering, did you do the same thing with Dungeon Clawler?
No, not at all, because there the risk was so much lower. We just basically made a prototype in like 3 months, put it out, let people play it, gather some wish lists. I think it got up to like about 200,000, and then just launched it like half a year later. So the whole development was like a year, and it was only my co-founder. So that's why it's a physics game, and one of our artists part-time, and then our sound designer coming in at the end doing some music and stuff. And that was it. And it was like, for us, compared to our previous projects, a tiny investment, right? And yes, so it was allowed to skip all of the steps aside from the demo step. And we were much more willing to experiment also with the marketing. So we did a mobile sim ship. That was a cute story, because our neighbors from the co-working space came over, and lately there was not a lot of, like, they are mostly an agency doing like VR, AR apps, websites. And lately, I don't know how it is in other countries, but here there's been a bit of a slump in agency work. So they came over like, do you have something we could maybe do? And we were like, let's try a Dungeon Clawler mobile port. And then they did it. And they also have like a rev share in it. They did a really good port. It's like 4.9 stars on iOS and Android. And then we sim shipped it with the PC version. And like a third of the copies that we sold is mobile. And it's premium mobile. And then it also got into Google Play Pass. And it's been doing really well on Google Play Pass in the past 3 months. So currently Dungeon Clawler Mobile is financing our 15 people in the studio.
Wow.
I'm like, very nice. Nothing I would have ever expected to happen. Now we're trying it again, the mobile premium sim ship thing with another game that we're publishing, to see if we can reproduce this. And this is an experiment we would have never done like with a bigger project. Then the focus would have been, get the stuff that actually needs to be done. And here it was like, sure, why not? Let's do it. Also, like Google Play Pass, we would have carefully considered how will this impact our long tail if it's in a subscription. And here it was just like, whatever, let's do it. And it was like the best decision that we did in the past 2 years. And it was just a random thing.
So funny, because everybody says like premium doesn't work on mobile anymore, right?
Yes. I mean, I was a believer in this as well. So it was really
Crazy.
just a low invest thing. I think what really helped, in my opinion, here was the sim ship, because the game ended up having quite a bit of coverage. So I guess then people who saw it with streamers and YouTubers and so just checked if it was also on mobile. And I feel like if we had split the push, then it would have done much less, because that initial push helped it to like surface on the charts and to be picked up by the Google Play Pass team, I guess. So that's why I want to try it one more time and see if I can.
If it's reproducible. Why does everything you try seem to work out? And a question I'm wondering about is which things have not worked out? Are there any?
So we actually made another mobile game back like 5 years ago, which was like a little tiny spin-off project for Niche, like a mobile, not Niche ported, but like Niche in a more casual style, which was a side project of me while doing the Wandering Village with 2 interns, essentially. And it really didn't work well. Nobody knows it exists. And that was basically the end of our story with mobile. That's why we were not super interested in doing any ports anymore. And now we were proven wrong. This has kind of shown me a little bit that I guess it is like if something fails once, you so quickly make the conclusion it's just always gonna fail or it's always gonna work if it works once. I think that's also why we have so many different studios, right? Because one thing worked for them and then they ran with it. And something that worked for somebody else just didn't work in this specific instance and then they never did it again. So I'm like, second chances are maybe not the worst idea. And other than that, so we've started a publishing branch 2 years ago. Here again, the main motivation being having multiple eggs in the basket instead of one giant one. And because we felt that with the knowledge we have, we can really help other devs. And because we felt that having more releases, not just like one every 3 years or something, would help us improve our relationship with platforms. Like maybe we can find a bulk deal where we do put multiple games into Game Pass when the separate games would have not gotten in. Steam is taking us more seriously. We can make a publisher sale. You collect publisher studio followers from all the game releases that you do. So we just thought that for the studio it would be a benefit. And if we can get it to run break even, then it's a net positive for us.
Yeah.
So now I'm in the process of trying that, and it's really hard. Been doing it for 2 years. I'm a publisher on probation, I call myself. So essentially, I got money from the studio, right? So we said like, okay, let's see. And I'm trying to like get it back close to break even to decide whether or not we should continue to do this. I think I'm gonna make it, but I've seen that this is actually what taught me that even if I have these 6 games that I signed and I'm doing marketing for each of them with, thinking what to do, where to do it. And so I'm seeing the results are wildly different. So like for one of the games, I have to do nothing and everything just goes. And for the other one, I'm busting my ass off and it's just not happening. And yeah, that is where the realization of, I guess it's really just mostly the game came from. So
I love that
hard.
you're confirming that. I love that you're confirming that because I had the same realization with my own games, and some people don't believe me. Like I did the exact same marketing for Will You Snell that we did for Thronefalls. Like not that different actually. We did very similar things, but one just worked out way better. So it's like it's like if you have the correct game, it's almost like marketing on easy mode, right?
I forgot one. So actually, I made another mobile game very, like when I was still in school. What was that? 12 years ago. And for that game, I actually had a publisher. And with the publisher, he essentially told me what kind of game it should be, like a point-and-click adventure and the setting. And then I recruited all of my classmates and we split my measly intern payment amongst us all and spent our whole summer vacation and some more time than working on the game. And it absolutely horribly flopped. In the end, we each got like $200 out of it for like working multiple months on it. I felt that next time when I do something, because I blamed it a little bit like, oh, the game was good. Why did the publisher not do such a good job? Now I'm in the reversed role, and I'm like, ooh, was it really like that? I don't know. But back then I was like convinced if the marketing would have been better, the game would have done good. And so I said that no, for the next game, I'm not taking any publisher. I want to be responsible for I want to be able to feel responsible that it failed, so I have to do it all and make all of my decisions, and nobody else can get in there and tell me what I should be doing.
So it's a bit of a paradoxon, right? That as a publisher, you basically want to pick the games that would already succeed without you. It's kind of
Yes. Yeah, of course. I mean, you still need to help elevate them, right? So I do think you can make a difference with that spark or with the flamethrower that you're putting. I mean, if you have a really good game, this is the fire analogy, all the sticks are aligned nicely, and you come with the flamethrower, there's a chance it will really just completely light up, right? So I do think publishers can provide value, especially if the game can't be made in the first place because they don't have the funding.
Sure.
That's where you make the biggest difference, probably.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Have you funded any games, or which kinds of arrangements do you have with developers so far?
Different. So for some, we only funded. For others, we only did marketing. And for most, we funded and helped with marketing. Not like huge sums. I would say maybe like max is like 200-300K-ish. So like more on the smaller side, or it's partial funding. Yeah, that was about the range.
Actually, also a very interesting question. How do you pick which games to work with? Do you find them, or do they find you? And how do you choose the best ones?
I think I've never signed something that pitched to me so far. I don't know. So we get pitches. I also am very overwhelmed, feeling a bit guilty about it, that I want to play them all. I want to give them all feedback, but it's just impossible. So as a publisher, you're essentially sitting there, and if the game cannot draw my attention just with the GIF and like one sentence or two sentences, it's like it goes away. So the first game, that's maybe a cute one, that we signed is, I was currently fighting new publisher imposter syndrome. Could I really help another dev make their game a success or not? And then there was this game currently on Kickstarter, and it had a good start with the campaign, but then it kind of dwindled a bit. And then I wanted to see, like, I want this game to have a successful Kickstarter, and I'm taking this as a challenge to myself to see if I can help that works. So I reached out to the dev and offered him that we would just borrow him 5K, no strings attached. Here's 5K. We help get you an ad agency, because the game didn't have a demo. We help get you an ad agency. If the campaign fails, you don't have to give it back. If it's successful, you give it back. And then he said, like, yeah, let's do that. And also organized like some shout outs from other Kickstarters. And then you can clearly see, like, in the backer history, like what day it started. And then it ended up overfinancing by exactly the amount that the ads cost. Pretty much exactly. And it was like, cool. Apparently it makes a difference. And that gave me then the confidence to like talk to him whether or not we should start working together. The other ones, some of them were people that I knew previously, like from a dev background. I think that makes it easier for us compared to other new publishers that we have been through the process and we know how it feels, and we're not gonna make you crunch. And we can also help with gameplay feedback. So I think one of the games that I'm very proud we ended up signing was, I think, a project that quite a few publishers pitched for, because it had like a viral trailer on YouTube, and so everybody was onto it, And I feel that with us playing the game and giving really deep, insightful feedback, that was impressive to the dev, and he thought that, not only are these people going to make marketing, but they can also help me improve the game. And that is something we really like playing the new builds of that people are making and giving our input on what we could. But yeah, it was a bit all over the place. But mostly it was either people that I knew from before. Though some of the games were also already in early access that we signed, because there we felt like, okay, we already kind of see the baseline, and we also as quickly as possible want to build up a publisher portfolio so that we can show like these are the kinds of games we want to do. And then if they're already out, nice, right? And then you can work with them. Yeah, so it's a bit all over the place. Still figuring out what works the best. I have not yet found any specific approach, but please continue to send me your pitches. I'm looking at them. I hope at some point I'm like, yes, this. But yeah, I think it's just like all the team and everybody is constantly like looking around, right? And then if you have games that can already bring in some kind of validation, like, oh, the demo has a lot of players or the YouTube trailer went viral, that just makes you react because you have to react right now. When we have our little co-working space and we have like projects that we mentor, and I usually try to give them advice on how I would handle publishers if you want to make them react quickly. So what would you have to do with me if you want a reply right away? Because, people are slow and then it drags on forever. I've just seen so many developers stuck in this publisher pitch limbo forever. They're like, it's a year later now and they're still pitching. And they're getting feedback of what they should improve for the game that from the publishers, and then they improve that and they resend the pitch and still nothing happens. And I think if your game doesn't make a dramatic change or suddenly has some kind of new validation, like now it has suddenly 20,000 wishlists, then it becomes interesting again. But if it's just fix small things, I don't think it's going to change. I mean, I'm sure there are cases, but from what I've witnessed, it's not changing publishers' opinions. So I always tell my people that you pitch and then you say, and we're announcing the game in a month or in 2 months or something. You put a deadline to the publisher thing. So they are like, okay, either I sign it now or the announcement is going to move without me. So that makes me react. Like, okay, I need to choose now. It's not like they're coming back with an improved version in half a year or something.
Sure. Yeah. So that's like basic negotiation tactics, basically.
Yes.
That I guess you have to grab into that toolbox a little bit if you want to get a reply.
Yeah, but just like I would just in general not recommend staying in publisher limbo forever.
Yeah.
So if you have an unannounced game, I recommend reach out to the publishers and to the platforms where you think, oh, this would be really good. And if it's after 3 or 4 months not looking like something is going to happen, then maybe send them a reminder. Hey, we're about to announce it, by the way. If you wanted to do that with us, now is the time. And then move forward, announce it, and hope it's doing something. Like put your demo out there, get your trailer out there, give them some kind of validation. And maybe you don't even need them anymore. And maybe they're going to come to you after it's actually going good. And I think that puts you in a much better position anyway. It sucks if you then do the announcement and it absolutely flops. And then you have an announced game and then you try to pitch it again. That makes it harder. But
yes,
I think it's better than being stuck in publisher pitch limbo.
Like if I was a publisher, right, I think I would be very much looking at what public validation is already out there. Has this game run a Kickstarter? Has it already announced? How has this announcement gone and so on?
Yes.
So I can imagine that this drastically either improves or worsens your odds, depending on how it goes.
Very much. Like if you ran a playtest, be sure if the game looks interesting, be sure I looked at how many people played it or are still playing it. I'm looking at all your socials. Is there anything I can do because before we sign a game, we have like this deal sheet where we put like, okay, this is the worst case scenario we expect, realistic and optimistic. And it kind of needs to be above certain thresholds for at least the realistic and the optimistic one to say like, okay, let's go with this game instead of all the other games, but because there's a lot of pitches going around. And anything you can do to increase my confidence for the realistic outcome, the higher the chance it would actually make sense. Yeah, I mean, it's funny to see both of these sides because from a dev perspective and from a publisher perspective, I understand them more now.
Yeah, I see. And you also review game pitches for the Wing Game Fund, if I'm correct, right? So you're also in the committee there. What Like, as someone who has just seen a lot of pitches, what would you say, what differentiates a good pitch from a bad one?
Yeah. I think so much is just about, can you just get me right away? Like, is it like the trailer and the demo? I mean, if the demo is not good, the trailer, I don't care that much about the trailer, but if the demo is not good, I don't even care what's in the pitch deck, right? Only if like, okay, the demo is really cool, then I'm like, how much would it actually cost to get this game made? What other validation can they give me? Here again, like, is the demo good? And is there any external validation for me? Are the two biggest points. Maybe don't have a super ugly pitch deck that gives me no infos, but I think that's very secondary. And yeah, if it's not the fanciest trailer, I don't care either, because that can be made. But if the game itself is not hitting it in... So I usually think there's two ways to be really successful. Either you do it better or you do it different. If I'm just feeling like I've seen your game before and the other version of it is probably more fun, if I really feel like, oh, this is Balatro, but it's better, then I'm like, okay, then I'm there. Or if it's just something that is unique enough to be its own thing, while still not being so alien that nobody really understands what it is. So for me, Dungeon Clawler is an example of this, right? Because it's like, okay, everybody knows what a roguelike deck builder is at this point, and uses another kind of mechanic that nobody used in order to interact with the game. But like the whole, how you pick items for your deck and how to upgrade stuff is very similar to others. So here again, the mental energy of the player is focused on the important part of the game. And if I basically need to learn, I mean, it can be really cool. If you make a whole new genre, I think you will weirdly have a hard time selling it because nobody has any reference points on how it could do or who it will appeal to. How am I going to market this game? Even though it might be, the next Undertale, and just nobody believed it would be. And that's kind of cruel, I think. But maybe then sometimes you have people that are visionary enough to understand where you're going with it. But I feel a lot of times, a lot of cool, mega innovative games that just fall between the publisher cracks because it's too risky and too weird. And also between the player cracks, because they are also like, what is this? I don't know what this is. And then it can be that they don't look at it.
And even worse is also the algorithms, because, for example, Steam has a predefined set of tags, and if your game doesn't fit any of these tags, then also the Steam algorithm is gonna have a bit of a harder time with your game, of course.
Yeah.
I've also thought a lot about this thing that you said with either you have to do it better or you have to do it different. I wonder if like a good summary of this would be that you just have to be the best or one of the best in your category, right? Either you go into an existing category and you make one of the best entries there, or you create a new category that you get to be one of the best of. But that's the second one comes with a caveat that it needs to be it can't just be any category, right?
So we just ran a bootcamp here in the Game Hub, me and the developer of Potato, where essentially we tried to help people come up with concepts that they want to make, that they can make, and that they should make in terms of what would currently work on the market and that can be finished in a year. So basically, like Potato was made and how Dungeon Clawler was made. And one thing that I found is they basically had to look at tags and what tags are popular and what do they like to play. And if they brought me, and I learned a lot myself too, because there were like 15 projects, and essentially the deal was that both me and the Potato developer needed to give our stamp of approval that they should move forward and spend a month making a prototype, which is a lot of pressure because like, if I say the game idea and the genre and everything is the most important step and the marketing is not even that important, it's like, can I give my stamp on approval? And I found that if it's a game in like a genre that is rather new, but is starting to establish itself, that's nice. especially if there are like entries in the genre. Let's say it's a potato-like or like a Vampire Survivors-like, where there are a lot of entries in the genre that have not very good reviews, so like mostly positive or mixed, but have a lot of reviews. Because then you are like, okay, so people actually want this, and even though this is apparently not that good, they still got it because there is no other offer out there that they could play instead if they wanted this. And then if somebody comes to me with a genre such as a platformer where all of the recent successful examples are overwhelmingly positive, then I'm like, it's going to be mega hard to get in there because there's no guarantee you're going to make that good of a game. Or especially if they're overwhelmingly positive and they only have like 100 reviews. I'm like, even though you made a really, really good game, you didn't really get the exposure. So I would much rather make a game that is mixed with 5,000 reviews than in the genre of overwhelmingly with 100 reviews.
Interesting. So that sounds like a super useful metric for which genres to get into, to have a look at how many reviews do they have and like how are the reviews? Are they mostly positive or negative? That's super interesting strategy. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, that only came up in the bootcamp when they showed me their reference games. And I was like, would I make it based on this? And now I think the bootcamp is, by the way, pretty interesting because I think you just talked to René too, right? In another episode. And he has this whole itch validation step that we are stealing now. And essentially all the 15 games that were made now in the bootcamp within these 2 months. So they had to make the concept and the prototype in 2 months. And then they're all put on an itch page together. And then the money so like people could either pay us in rev share for the co-working space. It's like it's a non-profit. So it just goes to organizing events and stuff, or just paying us. And then the ones that just paid us, we use the money to hire YouTubers and streamers, which are now going to play through all of the bootcamp games. It's happening now.
Okay.
And then everybody who participated gets the metrics of all the games, and they can see how well theirs performed against the other that were in there. And then hopefully that gives just one potential data point on whether or not to continue this idea or start something new. I'm so curious. I'm really hoping one of them will go big.
That's super interesting. I think this is the correct time to explain to the viewers maybe where you're at right now and what you're doing here with the co-working space.
All right, yes. So I'm sitting in our co-working space in Zurich. We started it together with 2 other studios, with Ateo, who did our port for Dungeon Clawler, and with David Stark, who is a solo dev. And we essentially just moved into an office together and had like one extra room that we wanted to fill with other devs. And that was 3 months before COVID. So that was the perfect time to start a co-working space, which was then closed down for 2 years. But after that was finally over, we like filled the building up with more devs. And now in January, we moved into this hall, which is like 2,500 square meters and 140 devs. So it's really like every day you have lunch and you have all these interesting discussions, and like new teams are forming and new collaborations are happening. And it's just really fun to sit in it and how it transforms our very small local dev scene.
And this co-working space was co-founded by you, and it's called Swiss Game Hub? Or
yeah, exactly.
And developers can just rent in essentially and get a space to work with. Cool.
Yep, exactly. Or if any of you that are watching this video are coming on a vacation to Switzerland and just want to work here for a week, you can just drop by and hang out.
So you still have space.
Yes.
You can move a couple of tables.
So like the fixed spaces are like rented, but there's like flex desk where people come every day and then they take their stuff, and there's usually always a bit of space there. So you're welcome to visit.
Do you have any interesting devs in the house already? Or is it mostly newcomers, or are there some games that people might know about?
So the Potato dev is here with us, which is really, really cool. Also like for the bootcamp. So it was like his initiative.
Okay,
and we have the guys from Unrailed, which you
Ooh.
maybe know. It's one of the
Yep.
more successful. Actually, both of them are sitting like right behind there. Other than that, yeah, we have a few. Maybe you know Airships. That's David Stark's game. It's also maybe you know The Farmer was replaced. I think it's about to launch. Yeah.
This was like a week-long addiction. The Farmer was
Yeah,
replaced.
I'm surprised. I have no idea who is here. Like every week, I'm like,
Okay.
oh, that's your game. You made that, and like, yeah, they're like crawling out of all their holes, and I'm realizing there is more successful Swiss games that I didn't know were Swiss.
Wild. So you meet people and you get to talk and collaborate, and obviously learn a lot from each other. Hopefully.
Yes, it's
nice.
Cool. I like it.
All right, so your last game, Dungeon Clawler, let's go back to that. There was actually one more thing I wanted to ask about that, which was, did this also start from a fantasy perspective? Was like the fantasy the starting point, or was it more of a gameplay kind of thing for this one?
So I can recite the exact conversation of how this game actually happened. So me, my co-founder Micha, and our tech artist Markus, who was responsible for the 2.5D style of Wandering Village, just like grabbing something to eat after work. And as it happens, you continue to talk about work things. And at the time, like Peglin was really going through the roof. And we were like, yeah, roguelike deck builders are cool. We like playing them. We would like to make one, but we feel that even back then, card-based is kind of already, there's a lot of them already. But Peglin is the first one that is like doing it on a physical, like a physics-based roguelike deck builder. And we started brainstorming what other physics-based roguelike deck builders you could do. And somebody of us said Claw Machine. And then somebody said, and then we call it Dungeon Clawler. And then everybody went, ha ha ha. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it started. And then in the studio, we have Monday and Friday afternoon is do what you want afternoon. So many of us are spending it prototyping. I'm writing weird fantasy novels, but most of my coworkers are using it to a useful extent for the company. And Micha just started making a super quick build for like idea on how it could work with the Claw Machine deck builder. And it was fun. We liked it. But also we had a million other prototypes that we wanted to make. So we put it in the fridge. So it was in the fridge for, I think, 8 months or so. And then we took a team vacation with everybody to Japan. It was like, this was our celebration trip for Wandering Village launching into early access and us not dying as a studio. So we were like, cool, and it did good. So let's all go to Japan together. And then we got hopelessly addicted to the claw machines in the arcades. Like, spent so much time and money, and we are still in there mentally. Yeah. We never would have believed this was so big in Japan. Like, multiple floors of just claw machines. And we were like, and we have a prototype of this back home in the fridge. What the fuck? It should never have gone in the fridge. It will do great in Japan. There is nothing like this out there. So we went home, took it out of the fridge. Micha got an artist, Larissa, who was also very addicted to the claw machines. We got a Japanese PR agency, and Neon Noroshi. They're really good. I highly recommend working with them. And then we kind of made a demo and prepared like a press outreach with this story. You know, Western people are coming to Japan, getting addicted to claw machine, going home, making claw machine game. Good story. Quite a lot of like Japanese outlets picked it up.
Okay, and, nice.
Then we released the demo for the game after like 3 more months of work. So I think in total it was maybe at this point like 4 months of work with the previous version that Micha had made. And we dropped it into the Steam Deck Builder Fest, the demo. And it just went from there. Like from there, it just did its thing. I mean, we continued to push it and made sure that it's in all kinds of Steam Fests, and we made some social stuff. And we did, for that one, we did like a very small influencer outreach of just people that previously played our games, which was like 700-ish or so YouTubers and streamers. But we didn't want it to, like, funnily, we didn't want it to go too big because it was like shortly before Next Fest. So we were kind of trying to save the main push for Next Fest. And so we did another influencer outreach with, I think, like 15,000 mails or something for the Next Fest demo. And then it was the 11th most played game in Next Fest. We also had a challenge, for such a tiny game with 4 months in development. So that was really, we were like, okay, cool. No. So like we even had a bet going that if the game makes over 10,000 wishlists, we're getting a claw machine for the office. And it ended up, because that was my goal for such a tiny game, and it ended up with 200,000. Yeah, we now have a claw machine in the office. It's very like in the co-working space, and everybody can put in their merch. And that's it's like a dungeon crawler themed claw machine. That was nice. That's how it went. Yeah, and then I feel like I also could have, from that point on, done nothing, and the game would have still gone well. But it probably went better because we put more effort into it, and then it had a bigger launch push. But
got it. So you had a bunch of prototypes in the oven from like these Do What You Want Fridays, I think, right? And then
Monday and Friday afternoon, yeah.
You realized the power of that fantasy you've been sitting on. And obviously the final reveal to the story would be, did the game actually do well in Japan?
Yes, it actually did well in Japan. I think mobile, it's our biggest country. And on Steam, it's also in the top, actually second. I think it was like 15% Japan or something. Yeah.
That's also something Gavin, the Choo Child's developer, talked about a lot. Is like combining things that are already proven, but they don't have to be proven in games particularly, right? They can be proven things from other media. They can be proven in the real world to some capacity. So I feel like using claw machines is kind of that route. You're taking something that has been proven to work well in the real world, and you port it to a game. And then you combine it with a genre that's already working well.
Yes. The only problem that when we had the Next Fest demo, after that we already had like people ripping the code from the Next Fest demo, and we had like 10 mobile clones before the game was even out. And all of them were free to play. Yeah, some of them we managed to get removed because they downright stole all of our stuff. Others are like, they stole all of our itemization, like 1-to-1, but they put different graphics. And then like Apple was like, give them a few months to diversify the game more. And now they like to change some of their items, and that was okay. Yeah, it's not fun.
Come on.
Mobile they are such hyenas just waiting for you to put something up that kind of works. Yeah, it's crazy. And we never had this problem because all our previous games are so complex. So that was a bit of, for Wandering Village, we had our assets stolen and our screenshots stolen by some really big mobile publishers that are like making, I don't know, billions with their free-to-play games, and they're using our indie game screenshots for their ads. I don't know.
Yeah, we have some of the same stuff for Thronefall, where some people use like real Thronefall footage to run ads and so on. Like, very weird. There must be like almost an entire industry of like.
There is.
And they're quite sophisticated about it as well. Some of them, like it almost feels like they take a screenshot and they rebuild it 1-to-1.
Yes.
Or they analyze the music and they rebuild the music and change like 2 notes or something. It's like, holy hell, you put so much work into this. Why don't you just make it?
Unfortunately, I guess it works then if they're putting in all this
wild. What are you working on now? Like, were there any other games after Dungeon Clawler that I missed? Not the case, right?
No, so Dungeon Clawler is still early access. Wandering Village only just came out of early access. Okay. And right now we're mostly like jamming, making new prototypes, also like relaxing a bit after the launch, considering if we should do Wandering Village DLC, having discussions about that, also still doing some updates for Wandering Village. Yeah, and now we like kind of have 5 or 6 games floating around. That was also running around at Gamescom, like putting everybody my tablet in the face, like these are the 6 games that we made. These are all, check out all the videos, which one do you think we should make? And there was no clear verdict, which is like, I was really hoping like one was just standing out. We have one game that is something that our gameplay programmer, who has been complaining that we don't do enough story in our games, he has been complaining about this for the past 5 years. He also designed the story mode for Wandering Village, but it was still not enough story. So he's currently making a story game, which is something for me that will be a big marketing challenge. But it's kind of a mix between a visual novel, a life sim, and a turn-based strategy game, and a dating sim. That is a very wild, with permadeath. You have a dating sim with permadeath. Have you ever seen this? So we just took it to Gamescom and see how people are liking it. So that is one small project that we're doing. And then, right now we have like 5 or 6 things that are flying around. And we will see what of it actually gets finished. Also still pretty busy publishing some of the games, but no big new game in the pipeline as of now, which I'm actually not too sad about. We have this company voting thing. So every end of the year, the whole studio votes what we should be focusing on in the next 2 years and what they want to do. And in the past 3 years, it has always been top of the list, has been, can we please make some smaller games? No more 5 years Wandering Village. Because I also felt that I would say we're not the strongest at project management. We also have no producers in a 15-people team. Maybe it would be time to get one. So we've been standing around on each other's toes a bit on the one. And also, like, everybody usually is pretty opinionated about a lot of things. So it was feeling like it was a bit hard with all the people on one project. So now everybody is just like, it's just 3 or 4 people teams and everybody gets to be heard and it's much easier to manage. So that's why we thought that would probably suit us more to try out. But we'll see. I'm also a little bit torn. So this is my internal conflict you're listening to now. Between, like, as you said, from the outside, it looks like cool. They're actually, like, the things that they're doing seem to work. And if I now put out a bunch of small games where I have no idea if they will do well, like, how will that reflect on us as a studio? That suddenly, their first 5 games did amazing, and now they did 5 games that did meh. If you're not looking at it differentiated enough, and especially as a publisher, right? Because you kind of want to be the example to show, hey, we actually are able to make it, so you will believe us that we can make it for you as well. And now we're a bit in the, how are we going to present this? Is it like a tiny fawn sub-label, or are we just ignoring it and putting it out there? Should we even think about these things so much? That's kind of what's happening. Your opinion?
I wonder if you can just add enough verification to the process to ensure that the small games have a very high success rate. And I think that would also look good, right? You can kind of do like what Renee preaches and be like,
yes,
we'll validate often and early, and we'll figure out what works and what doesn't. And maybe we'll even kill a couple of projects that we realize don't work and make adjustments to make the other ones
fair. So I need to produce successful games always. Just put them out and see how they do.
I mean, that's also fair for small projects, right? That's kind of the appeal of small projects, is that you don't have to worry so much.
Yes. And the people that made them, if they're so easy and quick to make, if you're like done in 3 or 4 months, it's kind of a shame if you're not putting them out there.
Sure.
But I guess, you could still, like Sock Pop. Sock Pop is also not afraid to just put it all out there and see if something takes off, right? And we're in that, or just itch. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it'll be fine. I think people will understand that you're trying something out.
Maybe
it's understandable. Like for what it's worth, I'm going through a similar thing with my YouTube channel at the moment, actually, where I used to make very high quality videos, but very rarely. And now I'm kind of switched to a more quantity over quality approach again.
Are you saying this is not a quality video, sir?
This is very high quality, but it's not.
No,
it's not very No, I'm not kidding either. This has been fantastic so far.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's a very hard ask for people to sit through a 2-hour conversation
Yes.
to get this value. So most people would rather have me make like a 10-minute video summarizing the main points and presenting it like
Got it.
with juicy animations and so on. I don't have
Mhm.
time for that anymore, is what I decided. So that's why I'm doing this now.
Do you feel that, if I can ask one question,
Sure.
like, how much of the success of your projects do you attribute to your YouTube?
Yeah, that's a common question, and it used to be more. Like for Will You Snail, for example, I'm not sure Will You Snail would have done so well without my YouTube channel. Like, but once you get to a certain scale, to a certain level of success with your game, then it becomes very negligible. I feel like for Thronefall, I feel like my YouTube channel didn't really move the needle at all. Like maybe a little bit to get that initial spark or something. You can certainly argue that, but it's like I feel like Thronefall would have done almost the same without the YouTube channel. And there will be people who don't believe this, but this is my estimate.
Maybe we're back at, if the game is more niche, then you need to dig more, you know?
Sure, yeah, that's certainly the case for Will You Snail as well. So can you not make niche games? You can make niche games, well, it's more work.
Yes. I actually think it's great. You have your competition is usually not that big. So I do think, especially if it's your own niche, for me still, I call it niche. Niche for me was the most fun game that I made because it's just so much in my interest focus that I had a much easier time talk to people about this game, and like they had suggestions about epigenetics in the game, and I'm nerding out about it with them. And when I had to do the marketing for Micha's game, for Nimbatus, I felt that was way less effective because I have no idea how the space stuff, you do your space stuff. It's interesting, but it's nowhere as interesting to me as the biology genetic stuff. So there I opted more for like visual marketing. It looks cool. Let's make a cool GIF, because I'm not able to explain you how black holes work if you ask me. So it then would have had to be Micha, who was more the guy who went into all the groups, and he's less the guy that wants to do that. So that's why the marketing for this game.
Got it. So, but that means, or maybe that explains why the specialized publishers are often a better fit, because they share that excitement and they can spread that excitement more effectively than like maybe a generalized publisher or a generalized marketing agency that kind of do ads for everything. They can't go in groups and nerd about biology with people, right? You can only really do that yourself, or you find a partner who like shares that passion.
Yeah, and I think it's the coolest if it's just a dev, because being the publisher now of some other people, who wants to talk to me? They want to talk to the dev. They want to talk to the person that is shaping the game, not me trying to sell them stuff. So that's
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure if you have time to talk to everybody as a developer. So I'm wondering if maybe there's some healthy middle grounds, like having a community manager that relays some of the points to the developer and so on. Yes,
as long as it feels to people like this person is part of making the game, I think then it's fine.
Is there anything else you've learned about community management over the years? So how do you approach community management for your games nowadays?
I used to be very patient. I used to be so patient. Like back in the niche days, there were a few people that were like just constantly making trouble. And I took the time to basically do one-on-one talks with them via DM on why they are handling and why they are behaving in this way. And nowadays, it's just like you call somebody X, you're out of here. I don't care what's going on in your life. I can't deal with 30,000 people. I can't go on each individual person's level of problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I just gotten a lot more impatient, and I think it's not a bad thing. Because if you can't behave in a group setting, then just don't be in a group.
Okay. And obviously this community management nowadays mostly means probably Discord, right?
Yes. I have a bit So we actually used to run a forum for quite a long time when forums were already super out of date. And it was kind of hard to get it to come alive at the beginning. But now I'm not even doing anything anymore. It's still kind of alive. So I'm wondering if we should have stuck with it. But yeah, I mean, Discord is so convenient. I'm always a bit scared that, something can happen. Discord changes their policy, or I don't know, it's not allowed anymore now in Turkey, and suddenly a whole country is gone. So that is for me only one step into the community. The deeper step into the community is the newsletter, which we are doing, which we also, so at some point it was at about 100K people. But we have started to really viciously remove people that are not opening mails. Like if you're not opening a mail like 5 times, you're out of there because then you probably are not interested. And since then it's gone to like 30K people. And then I tried to like recruit people into the Discord, but then from the Discord into the newsletter so that we have access to them, even if Discord decides to, I don't know what. And we mostly do this by like giveaway stuff. We're giving away games in newsletter, or when we are running like an alpha or a beta access thing where you need to sign up for the newsletter in order to get the access key. Yes, I have to do it more again, letting it drop because Discord is so comfortable, but I shouldn't get too comfortable. So I really have to get back on putting more call to actions to our newsletter because I still think newsletters are an amazing marketing tool. I love it. You really see the people that are on it, they open it, they read what you're doing. And on Discord, it's amazing, but I feel like you can also just be muted and you do not know how many people actually read this specific announcement and so. I mean, you see it a bit with the reactions. But yeah, definitely. Step 1, Discord. Step 2, newsletter. I'm even thinking about if we should offer people one of our older games as a gift when they join the newsletter or something to make like the ultimate draw. We'll see. But like a lot of giveaways for like plushies and stuff that we're making or for games that we publish.
And do you see results from that? Like, do you see that makes an impact for marketing?
I mean, it's really hard to clearly differentiate then in the end what made what impact. But yeah, I do feel that also for stuff like merch campaigns where you have like a smaller audience to target to that is more targeted at your hardcore fans. It usually, we also, for example, had a plushie Kickstarter or like we just did an Ombu plushie campaign. And I feel like quite a few of the people that are coming are actually from the newsletter.
I see. Yeah, because a lot of people who have newsletters swear by them and are like, Jonas, you need to do newsletter. And I've also like, later. Maybe later.
You have YouTube. That's already a lot of work.
Yeah, I guess so.
And just don't do the manual list where you have to write, what I did in the very beginning.
Oh, God. Like going to events and typing everybody in. Hey,
I mean, I still recommend, yes, I still recommend like newbie devs to do this. But you don't have to anymore.
If you enjoy networking, then this is something you can try. Give me your email. Or just collect business cards and put them all on the newsletter.
Yes. So actually, for like events like GDC, we always, at least back in the day, had like a big glass ball. And it just said, business cards, join newsletter, win a Steam key. And then we came home with like 200, 300 business cards. And the good thing is there's actually like some fancy people in there. You're like, accidentally, there's somebody from Netflix and then you know this person is interested in this game and you can reach out to them. So yes, been there, done that.
Oh, big brain strategies we're tapping into here. Awesome.
Thanks.
What is this Swiss Game Developer Association that you've also been part of? What was that?
Yeah. That is like the association of Swiss game developers that are like fighting for example, funding for games, like political support, grants. And it's happening, actually. Thank you for asking. 10 years later, after a lot of work, Zurich is finally getting its own game fund. Tomorrow, the informations are coming out about it.
Okay.
Yes. Nice. That has been a lot of work, but also like organizing things such as the Swiss Game Award, or the Junior Swiss Game Award, or like the Swiss booth at a lot of local events, basically that kind of stuff, yeah. And then I kind of switched that out with the work for the co-working space, because doing both things and the studio and the publisher was kind of eating at me.
It sounds a bit much. Like I'm also sure, like even viewers listening will be like, "Oh my god, it sounds like you're all over the place." Or is that the case, or what do you spend the majority of your time on? Do you feel torn between all of these projects, or do you have?
So the studio and the publisher definitely take up the most time.
Got it.
Mostly marketing and management things, though I kind of miss jumping back into, like, I'm really like during the game jams, I'm like, give me something to draw, give me something. Because the creative energy is building up, and probably sooner or later it will emerge again into another biology game, I assume. But right now, yeah, it's fun. I like, in general, starting. Ideally, if I could pick, I would always start new things and then leave.
Okay, that's what we would all do, honestly.
And yeah, with the hub, a lot of the work has also been taken over by Ateo and some of the other people that are running it. So at this point, we are in the lucky position that it's being profitable with rent, so we can actually pay people to do work for the first time. That started this year. So, yeah, like stuff like the Wings Council or the Kickstarter committee, they usually are very just every month, a few hours or so. But yeah, like I would say what is the biggest mental load is I'm used to being with my brain in one project. Like Wandering Village was the game design lead for most of the time, and then like focusing on the marketing. And now with the published games, there's like 6 games in my mind, and like 3 or 4 games from the studio, and still Dungeon Clawler and Wandering Village. And now we have the Bootcamp games that I kind of also try to think about what they could do. So it gets a bit scattered up there, and it's time to go on vacation.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, so focusing on too many things at once is like very exhausting. I've been there many times, and then every once in a while I realize, okay, I need to cut some of them out, and then I figure something out. But as long as it works, right?
If you're a publisher and you're responsible for these projects now, you kind of can't cut them out until they are finished.
That's right. You have to find the correct time for it, of course. And
the problem is always wanting to start means I really like the part of scouting and signing new games, you know. So that's, in my opinion, the most fun part of work as a publisher, because you get to play a lot of prototypes, and then you end up signing another one which you're then responsible for. So you have to put it in there as well. But I found that even though it can get overwhelming, especially if things are happening at the same time, because you plan it out carefully. There is supposed to be 1 release per quarter, but then they all end up moving, and they're all in the same quarter. And me just constantly suddenly have 3 launches within 4 months or something, which is much. But like having multiple projects, you come up sometimes with an idea for a project, and then you're like, it actually would also work for the other project. And it makes this network of ideas in your brain that probably would not have come out if you were focused on one thing. I don't know how to exactly.
Yeah, sure. So
it feels like a mushroom network between the games working out there.
The projects can sometimes benefit from each other. When you find something that works for one game, then oftentimes it works for other games as well, right?
Yes. So for example, just one example, for the Wandering Village 1.0, we were quite surprised so we launched with like 900,000 plus wishlists, and we had a day 1 wishlist conversion of only like 0.3%. And I was like, and it had a 35% launch discount, which was our highest historical discount. And I was just thinking, the people on this wishlist are waiting for 1.0. Turns out I was mega wrong. They're all just waiting for a higher discount.
Oh.
So if I could travel back in time now, I would make this a 50% launch discount, even if it's like...
Oh.
Like I talked to a lot of people about it, and everybody told me, no, keep it lower. You're wasting too much money. You have that many wish lists. But yeah, I think that would have been the better idea. And now I have some other games that are waiting for their 1.0. So maybe now I can apply this learning directly because they are so similar.
I mean, a lot of marketing people say that you only get one launch for your game, right? Your early access launch is essentially your launch, and then when you go out of early access, it's, if you're lucky, a little blip. But some developers also tell a different story. Some also say the second launch was almost as big as the first. For example, I think the Tucana devs, like the Dorf Romantic devs.
Yeah.
I think for them, the second launch was also still quite good.
So for us, it was Niche was early access full launch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then for Nimbatus, it was early access full launch was same.
Okay.
And this was now the first time where Wandering Village, I would say this was early access and this was full launch. So this is a new experience to me. I'm used to 1.0 going the same or bigger. I'm curious how it will be with Dungeon Clawler. But yes, I've also heard that normally 1.0 is smaller than your early access release. I just hadn't lived through the experience.
What you just showed there with your hand, like you got 3 entirely different results for your games, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Tiny early access, huge 1.0, same, and then really big early access and okay 1.0. Yeah.
Can go anyway. Interesting.
Can go anyway, I guess, yes.
And have you identified some deciding factors, like maybe besides the launch discount, where I assume your feeling is to maybe make it a bit higher next time?
Yes. I've talked to a lot of people, like trying to help me figure out how, like, why it went. I was also not positively surprised by the console numbers. But I guess I just have to live with the fact that a strategy game is on consoles. At least that's what I'm being told. So just saying, I'm complaining on a very high level. It still ended up selling like 55,000 copies on in the first month of 1.0. Oh, but early access was 100,000 in the first week. So that's why we thought maybe we could get to 100 in the first month again with over 900,000 wish lists. One other potential factor I've identified, but I'm not sure about it, is just in general, there have been more city builder releases. And I felt like we were at the time where there were not that many. And I've just recently not really seen a launch that is not a medieval themed, realistic city builder, because they tend to always do, like, they tend to go pretty well. That did so good. So I'm thinking maybe we're at a bit of a point of a genre slump, but I'm not sure. I think that's already the 2 points. I guess maybe the updates. So we did like a big story mode update for 1.0 that we released shortly after. It was also, which I'm not sure this was enough to draw people in again. And even though we did a really big influencer campaign, we reached out to like 18,000 people and everybody who previously played the game. And very few people ended up covering it again. I feel like maybe the early access period was also just a bit long. So it was 2.5 years. And a lot of people actually, when I talked to them, like, oh, it's coming to 1.0, a lot of people told me, oh, I thought it was already 1.0. And so I guess we were the only ones still aware that this is an early access game. So I'm not really sure what happened there. It was our longest early access also. Like, Niche had only 1 year. Nimbatus was, I think, 1.5, almost 2. And now Wandering Village was 2.5. So next time I would maybe keep it shorter again to not lose too much of the momentum.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are examples where the game was in early access forever and then at 1.0.
Yeah. I wonder if you maybe need some bigger news for 1.0. If you maybe need to pack it with a big update or something, but I can only theorize.
Well, there was the story mode update, the Switch release, the PlayStation release, the announcement of a physical edition, a new fancy hand-animated studio from a Japanese animation studio. I feel like it was a bit of a... There was things.
But it was shortly after the 1.0, or was it for 1.0?
For 1.0. So the story mode update dropped a bit before to make sure it just works. But like the whole communication for it was then for the 1.
Got it.
So it was like a silent story mode drop.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. This is it's very curious sometimes which updates excite players and which don't. For example, for Will You Snail, we spent a whole lot of time making a level editor, and it didn't really draw in new people. I thought like, oh, let's make a level editor. This is gonna be awesome. This is gonna bring so many new people. And it was like the people who were already there find it awesome, but didn't really help.
Yeah, I agree. I find it very hard to find out what to do with the game after it came out. Like for Niche, we had a system that people could actually vote on their favorite features that they wanted us to make. And then for every update, we looked at the top 10 and tried to pick one and combine it with something that we wanted to do. And I felt that was very good for keeping everybody engaged, and they really felt like a part of the development process. I would maybe try to do something like that again, but it's quite a lot of work. Also, one thing we do, and we should really stop, is we overpromise things as stretch goals during the Kickstarter.
Oh, yes.
And then we're kind of locked in to what we should be making, even though we realize midway in that this is probably going to be a waste of time. We should put it into something else. And then maybe you can get away with not doing some of the stuff, but you kind of still feel obligated to deliver on what you promised. And I think that's not good for the project.
That's one thing I'm really happy we did not do for Thronefall, is like an early access development timeline, because some games do that, where they are very public about like their development plans, and you make a bunch of promises up front, right? Like if you don't have to, then don't do it. Like if you have to do it for a Kickstarter or something, sure. But
yeah, going with the flow is nicer, I agree.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's one thing that I wonder if I can ask you about. If not, we'll just edit this out if this like gets like too spicy. It's like I'm wondering a bit, why is my YouTube audience like 95% men? What's your theory?
95%?
It's crazy numbers. I have to double check, but it's something wild like that.
Probably don't have enough female guests to interest the female developers, so you should maybe improve that ratio.
Yeah,
Good
maybe,
start.
Yeah.
Looking around in my hub, I think it's also still 70, maybe 65% guys. So I just think there's still more men. I mean, of course, we know it's a
we know that
data point. There's more guys in the games industry, but yeah, 95 is a lot. So what I've been thinking is maybe the games that you made have a bit more of a male target audience. Would you say so? Yeah,
probably.
And also some of the guests you're inviting, or maybe also making games that are having a bit of a more male target audience.
Could be. It could very much be that I'm just basically a bit stuck in my bubble, right? Could certainly be the case. Yeah.
So maybe invite a super successful, wholesome game, Woman Death, and see what it does to your viewer numbers. Because
I
then
would also be curious. Yeah. No, I'm just like basically wondering about the reasons. Because also I feel like if I would pick a random game, like a random indie game on Steam, and would reach out to the creators, I would have a pretty high chance for it to be men, probably, right?
Yes.
And that's obviously.
And the question is why? Yeah.
I'm not sure if the question is why. I'm just curious how you think about it in general, I guess.
I think if your role models are men, then you attract more boys to a career path. It doesn't even matter what career. So, and since up until now, most of the successful devs that are being presented are guys, the girls cannot see themselves in them, is what I feel is often the problem of why are there not more. And then you need to kind of actively educate, like, you can be this too. If all the doctors are guys, you need to, as a kid, really think hard that I can be this, even though apparently no other women are there, And then you really need your parents and your teachers and society to help you show this. And if you just go to the hospital and a lot of the doctors are women, I think for you it just instantly becomes clear that it's a role for me. It's a role model thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think. Yeah.
But I'm honestly not so sure. I would like there to be more women in the games industry. So if I can I'm like, when we are hiring, we just really try to hire super neutrally, like
That's
not
awesome.
looking at all that stuff. And currently we are 45% women in the studio, so it works. I think you just they're out there and they're good, so just get them and let them.
Got it. Yeah, this is such a hot iron to talk about this. So it's always like you have to think about your words so carefully, but I guess it makes sense. Yeah,
it's also a bit like, I don't know if I'm the prime example for if I can speak for women, just because I am one.
Sure. Yeah, sure. You're not like the speaker for all women. I get that. But I think for what it's worth, I think you are at least a very good role model that, like, for example, other women could look up to if they want to get into the space and they want to start their own game studios.
Yeah, they can. Let me talk to them real quick. Let me talk to them real quick. You can. It's totally cool. You can be a game dev. Do it. It's fun. You can do art. You can do programming. You can do it all. Thank you. Now get to work. Thanks and bye.
Get to work. Yeah. If you have any tips, obviously, for other interesting female guests, then I'd very much be curious.
I'll make a list and send it to you.
Do that. That's all I can come up with. Do you have any more questions or stuff that you would be interested in?
Is it the goal to get to 2 hours?
Nope. We can just hit stop here.
Sounds good to me. I think that covered a lot of ground.
Awesome. Then thank you very much for your time.